Hello, YouTube. David Brown here. It's been a couple of weeks. I was not able to get the time to create a video for you last week, so I'm both happy and excited to be with you again. Today is President's Day, and I got to thinking about like the president being the leader of a country, right? And most of us, I know myself, want to be the leader of our finances, right? The president of our finances. So on this President's Day, I want to kind of talk about real estate investing. And before I dig into this a little bit, because I have touched on it a little bit in a previous video, I believe. This one's going to be specifically on real estate investing as a landlord and such. I want to be very clear. I am not a financial advisor. I don't know your specific situations. I must advise you to, while I welcome you to listen to me and, gain some, what I believe will be great information, I do urge you to speak with a financial advisor to um, be able to give you full in-depth insight about your specific situations. I'm also more than welcome to sit down with you and have one-on-one individual conversations around this and dig a little bit deeper into this. So that said, today is going to be about being the president of your own financial and personal life. Okay. And I'm just looking down at some notes. Nothing is written down other than notes here. So off this is going to be off the top of my head a little bit and just having great conversations. But passive income, right? We hear about that, and real estate is a passive income, right? And passive income requires oftentimes a lot of work up front, and at the same time, once you get it going, it doesn't require much work, if any, right? You can have other people doing things, or you set those systems into place. And passive income is income that's coming in, whether you work or not, right? So, while we all tend to be focused on, even small business people like us, right, or like myself, all I am is a self-employed person who is my own employee. I'm still an employee, right? I have to physically work to make money, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a very, I like to call myself a blue collar worker. Hands on. I love working. I believe that's one of my biggest strengths. And at the same time, 20 years ago, this year actually, I realized that I needed to start working on something other than my physical labor, uh, you know, um, wages. And I got into real estate investing, and bought my first rental property. So, real estate is a passive income driven thing. Again, a lot of work up front, but makes it an easier back end load. Okay. And, I did a little researching too. And, it's interesting because people who are in real estate, landlords, we're talking about, real estate investing here, are four times wealthier than the average person. Okay, and I've looked in the past, and I've looked at, I don't seek to be the richest person in the world. I could care less about that kind of stuff. I just want my share, right? As you would want your share. And I've looked at where people have made money, right? And we can hate on that or we can embrace that. Okay. Either way, that is reality. And reality is stock market and real estate are the two most common places that people that are wealthy, well-to-do make their money. Okay. And so we're going to talk about real estate a little bit, right? And again, four times more likely uh, to be wealthy. And where do you make your money in real estate? Again, in the perspective of this, the context of this video, when I say real estate, I'm referencing as a landlord. Okay, appreciation. Okay, you buy a house today for $150,000, and in 30 years, that $150,000 home is worth $300,000, for example, right? So over the past 30 years, you've made $150,000 in appreciation, right? Which is about $5,000 a year. And I'm just throwing numbers out there for easy calculation. And then debt reduction, right? Obviously you can pay things for cash. Most people don't have the cash to at least get started, so you have to take out a mortgage. I'm also not an attorney, but I also spoke with an attorney one time who advised me to, from a legal standpoint, he advised me to not have all cash in anything on down the line, because if there was ever a lawsuit or whatnot, they could potentially come after you specifically if you have 100% equity in a home, where if you have 10% equity in a home, there's not going to be enough money to go around, so they're not going to necessarily do that. So I bring that up only because I advise you to speak to multiple experts, in different fields, right? A tax accountant, my tax attorney, my tax accountant is going to give me expert advice on taxes, right? And at the same time, sometimes that can hurt in other areas if, for example, if I'm wanting to, a couple of years ago, I wanted to buy another house. I ended up buying two other houses. But I spoke with my mortgage lender to find out how much I needed to make. Right now, if I hadn't done that and all I did was go to my tax attorney would have taken full advantage of every tax incentive out there, and I may not have shown that I was making enough money to be able to get a mortgage to be able to expand in my business, right? So, again, I advise you to speak to multiple people. I am coming from a place of the fact that I'm a real estate salesperson in New York State, and also 20 years of experience as a landlord. I don't come from, tax experts or financing experts or anything like that. But debt reduction. So you buy a property today, again, $150,000, and in the next 30 years, not only does that home appreciate from 150 to 300,000, you have gone from a $150,000 mortgage, or 90% of that, 80%, whatever that is, down to zero, right? Because you've paid for it over time. So that is how you also make money, because you build up equity. So, and then while you reduce that debt reduction, cash flow. Every market is different. Again, I'm coming from the greater Rochester market, which has historically not been an appreciation driven market. In other words, we were, up until the last several years, we've been a very stagnant market, meaning, if I bought a house for $100,000 today, I wouldn't necessarily expect to make much appreciation over the next 30 years. Maybe in 30 years, maybe it's worth 150,000, right? But where I've been looking to make money is in the cash flow. I may not be making money over time through the appreciation, but each month, maybe I'm picking up a couple hundred extra dollars a month per unit, for example. Okay, so that cash flow, and then of course tax breaks is another, right? You're able to have some great incentives through tax breaks. And again, those questions should be directed to your CPA, tax attorney. A lot of people try to do things on their own, and I always advise to speak with an expert that really knows their stuff, and allow them to advise and handle your overall situation with whatever's appropriate. And I just brought up appreciation and cash flow. And one thing that I learned many years ago, it was that it's interesting, because let's take an example of, you buy a property today for $100,000. And let's say over the next 30 years, okay, you take the next 30 years to pay off your mortgage. Now, over that 30 years, let's just, for the sake of this conversation at the moment, say that you've made zero appreciation. You bought the house for $100,000 30 years ago, and today it's only worth 100,000. Okay. Now let's also say that over the past 30 years, you've made zero cash flow. Okay. Now we know there's going to be some appreciation. We know there's going to be some cash flow, but let's assume that you get zero appreciation and zero cash flow. You have still made 8.64% rate of return on your investments. How? You may be asking, oh, how do I do that, right? Well, it's as simple as this. Even though you've made zero cash flow, and even though there's been zero appreciation, the mortgage on the home has been paid by the tenants. So again, let's say you buy a $100,000 home and you put 20% down, and this is not an exact science, but I'm throwing numbers out there just to kind of show a point. Is then all of a sudden your mortgage is $80,000, and over the next 30 years, your tenants have paid that $80,000, right? So you've actually turned $20,000 because you bought a $100,000 home and you put $20,000 down, financed 80,000, okay? And over the next 30 years, even though you made no cash flow or appreciation, your tenants ultimately paid that $80,000 down now. So you've taken an initial $20,000 investment and turned it into $80,000, or I'm sorry, 100,000, making an $80,000 profit over. So that's an 8.64% rate of return. Okay, so to me that in and of itself is good. And that's one of the fact that you are going to get some cash flow, you are going to get some appreciation, unless complete luck is not in your, I shouldn't say luck because I don't believe in luck, unless you don't manage your business properly and you don't address things over time. That's different, right? But that's something that and then I compare. My first property was a rental, right? And when I bought, up until that moment, I had been renting from someone else, right? And today I talk to many people who are renting, and they say I don't want to own. And one of the biggest questions I ask is why not? And the number one reason is they don't want to be bothered with having to fix something. If the furnace goes, they want to be able to call their landlord and have their landlord take care of it. They don't want the personal responsibility, right? They don't want to have to be responsible for that. And then I ask people, well, how long have you been renting? Okay, and that answer is always going to be different. So I ask you, if you're renting right now, how long have you been renting for? Okay, now ask yourself this: out of that time, how many times have you had to call your landlord to fix something, right? And as a tenant, I can assure you, you are paying for that. Over time, you are paying for that in the rent, okay? And it's going to be cheaper rent, so to speak, if you buy a home and put a little money off the side, and in 5, 10, 15 years, whatever, you need a new roof, you need a new front, whatever it is, and put that, on, right? So, and I say that because rent, rates are rising right now. Interest rates back in 2020 and 21 got as low as 2.5%, right? And they are now up in the 4% range for the first time in over 3 years. And I personally expect them to continue going up. Can't predict the future. I expect them to keep going up 5, 6%, maybe even higher, because inflation is a serious issue. And we want to be careful because we hear about the Fed rates going up. That is not a result of that does not, at least directly, change the mortgage rates. I would urge you to speak with a mortgage lender on that. It's more the 10-year treasury. But again, speak with a mortgage rep on that. But even if they're 15%, like they were in the 80s, rent is 100% interest rates. Okay, everything that you put out is gone. Okay, you don't earn any appreciation. You don't earn any cash flow. You don't earn any debt reduction. And I've been telling people too. At some point we have to think of our future. Okay, and perhaps you already are, perhaps you're just starting to, and you're listening in. Perhaps you're not quite there yet. Maybe you're in your 20s like I was and wasn't thinking about that necessarily. But at some point, we need to look at our future. And I often look at people that chose to rent over time, and I'm not bashing anyone. Everyone's different. Everyone has different outlooks on life and desires and all that stuff. And there's no right or wrong decisions here. Okay, to me, it's what's better or not is better, but everyone has a different perspective on that, right? But you take someone that's, let's say, 70 years old and retired. Okay, and let's say over the past 30 years they've had a mortgage, and they this month are paying their last mortgage payments. Okay, to where all they're going to have to pay is school and property taxes and insurance, homeowners insurance. Okay, and some upkeep around the house. Okay, but the set monthly payment is taxes and insurance. Okay, and let's compare that to someone that's been renting for the past 30 years, that doesn't have a mortgage-free home, that doesn't have equity in their home, okay, that doesn't have any of that, okay. And what are they paying, right? What's the difference? Now rents are rising at insane levels right now. I just saw a report this morning, 19.2%, I think, housing prices went up year over year. Okay, and as home values continue going up, so and interest rates, so are rents. Rents are skyrocketing too. So I can only compare apples to apples, and that's as of today. So let's take someone that just paid off their last mortgage payment. Maybe they're paying, let's just say, $800 a month in taxes and insurance. Okay, now let's compare someone in the same situation that is renting. Okay, and they're renting for $1,500 a month, and they're retired. Okay, maybe they're not making, most likely they're not, unless they've created passive income or whatever. They're not making the money that they used to, and oftentimes are on fixed incomes. And there's a huge difference in retirement of someone who is paying $1,500, maybe even $2,000 a month in rent, as someone who is paying $800 a month in taxes and insurance, and it has a couple $100,000 in equity to tap into if they want to maybe go on a vacation or do something to enjoy retirement, right? So there's big differences, and we are going through inflation right now, and this is going to be the last thing I'm going to talk on, and I'm going to thank you for listening in here. And we're going through inflation right now, and renting versus owning, when it comes to inflation, couldn't be further opposites, polar opposites, meaning this. Okay, when you own rental property or when you own property, during inflation, real estate goes up. Okay, real estate is one of, if not the biggest inflationary plays that's out there. Okay, that's one reason why investors are, big investors are buying up as much as they can. They realize inflation is giving them appreciation they've never seen before. And at the same time, as inflation goes up, so are rents, right? So while as a homeowner or investor, you're kind of locked into that, and you're not affected as much by the inflation. On the negative, you can actually benefit from the appreciation, but as a renter, your costs continue to go up and up and up year over year. Okay, and I mean they're going up 15-20% year over year for the past 2, now going on 3 years. And so just a little food for thought. I hope I'm just looking through here. I think I covered everything. And I hope you found some value in this. Again, I'm a licensed real estate salesperson in the state of New York with Keller Williams Realty Greater Rochester. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an inspector. I'm not anything other than a real estate salesperson who has an abundance amount of knowledge as an investor and as a landlord. So that I'm just bringing some information there. I urge you to speak with someone that is an expert and licensed to speak more in depth and potentially has more in-depth knowledge of where you're at and where your goals are. And I'm one of those individuals that, you know, reach out to me. Let's connect in. I'd love to have conversation with, around real estate. I am not a pushy salesperson. No, I enjoy having conversations and just simply sharing information so you can come to the best decision that you are able to come to for your goals, okay, for your future. Again, thank you for joining me here today. And please comment in below on any subjects that you might like for me to discuss. Moving forward, if you have any questions related to anything that I have, reach out directly or comment below. And if you have yet to do so, please subscribe to my page. And I thank you for your support. In the meantime, until the next time, make it a great day and always know I'm rooting for you. Cheers.